Live from Boston, Massachusetts, it's theCUBE, covering IBM Chief Data Officer Summit. Brought to you by IBM.
Welcome back to theCUBE's live coverage of the IBM CDO Summit here in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight, along with my co-host, Dave Vellante. We are joined by Caitlin Halferty. She is the Chief of Staff, IBM Data Office, and also John Backhouse, the Chief Information Officer and Senior VP at CareEnroll. Thank you both so much for coming on theCUBE.
Great to be here, thank you.
So before the cameras were rolling, John, we were talking about how you have this very unique vantage point and perspective on the role of the CIO and CDO. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about your background?
Sure. I started off in the military. I was in the Army for 12 years as a military intelligence officer. I then moved to the NHS, which is the National Health Service in England, where I wrote the clinical care pathways for myocardial infarction and diabetes pre-hospital. I then moved to the USA and became is Chief Data Officer for Envision Healthcare, one of the largest hybrid providers of insurance and clinical care. And then I became a CIO for a multi-state Medicare program.
So you've been around, so to speak. But the last two roles, CIO and CDO, so how would you describe them? I mean, obviously two different places, but is it adversarial? Is it cooperative? What is the relationship like?
I think as the last couple of years, CDO role has matured and it's become a direct competition between the CIO and CDO. As my experience is, I've been fighting for the same budget, I've been fighting for the same buy-in, I've been fighting for the same executives to sponsor my programs and projects. I think now as the maturity of the CDO has stepped out, especially in health, the CDO has a lot more power between the conduit between the business and IT. If the CDO sits in IT, it's doomed for failure because it's a direct competition of a CIO role. But I also think the CIO role has changed in the way that the innovation has stepped up. The CIO role used to be, your career is over, CIO. Now, it's the innovational aspect of infrastructure, cloud, cognitive solutions and analytics to the way that data is monetized and sold and reused in the way that the business makes decisions. I see a big difference.
How much of that sort of authority, if I can use that term, of the Chief Data Officer inside of a regulated company versus, you're in the office of the Chief Data Officer in an unregulated company? Compare and contrast.
Well, the Chief Data Officer's got all the new regulatory compliances coming down, the GDC, the security, safe harbor, and as the technology moves into cloud, it becomes even harder as you get PCI, HIPAA, and etc. So everything you do is scrutinized to a point where you have to justify why, what, and when. And then you have to have the custodian of who is responsible. So no longer can you say, I got the data for this reason. You have to justify why you have that information about anything. And I think that regulatory component is getting stronger and stronger.
And we've often talked about the rise of the CDO role and how it's changed over the last few years, and it primarily started in response to regulatory and compliance concerns within financial services industry, as we know, banking and insurance, healthcare, and we're seeing more and more retail, consumer product, other sort of industries saying, look, we don't really have enterprise-wide management of data, across our organization. Well, investing in that leadership role to drive that transformation. So I'm seeing that, spread beyond the regulated industries.
Well, Caitlin, in the keynote, you really kicked off this conference by reminding us of why we're all here, and that is to bring Chief Data Officers together to share best practices, to share what they've learned in their own organizations. Hearing John talk about the fight for resources, the fight really to justify his existence. I mean, what do you think, how would you tease out the best practices around that?
The way we've approached it, I mentioned this cognitive enterprise blueprint that we highlighted and released this morning, and this has been an 18-month project for us, and we've done it in close partnership with folks like John, giving a lot of great insight and feedback. And essentially, the way we see it is, there's these 4 pillars. So it's the technology piece and getting the technology right. It's the business process, both CDO-owned processes as well as enterprise-wide, and then it's the new piece we've added is around data, understanding that the data part of it is so important. And so, so we've delivered the blueprint and then taken it to the next level to figure out what are the top use cases. How do we prioritize, to your question, prioritize those use cases?
So to come back to the overlap between CIO and CDO. I remember when I first met Inderpal, we had him on theCUBE, and he seared into my brain his 5 points that the CDO has to do. He had the imperative, and 3 were sequential, 2 were in parallel. 1 was figure out how to monetize, how your data can contribute to the monetization of your company. Second was data trust and sources. 3rd was access to that data. And then those were sequential processes. And then he said, line of business and skill sets were the other 2 that were kind of you do in parallel. Forge relationships with the line of business and reskill. Okay, so with that as the Inderpal sort of framework for what a CDO's job was, I loved it. I wrote a blog about it, and clipped it.
It was very good.
But the CIO hits on a lot of those areas, certainly data access, trust and security, the skill sets. Thinking about that framework, first of all, do you buy it? And I presume it's pretty valid, but where do you see the overlap and the collaboration?
So I think that the framework what's out there now, what IBM have produced, is very tangible. It means that you can take the pieces and you can action them. So before you have to reflect on, 1, building the team, getting the right members in the team, getting the right skill sets in the teams. That was always a challenge because you're building a team but you're not quite sure what the skill set is until you've started the plan and the math and you've started down that pathway. So that, with that blueprint, it helps you to understand what you're trying to recruit for, is one aspect. And then 2 is the monetization, or getting the data and making it fit for purpose. Well, that's a real challenge, and there's no magic wand for this. You know, it depends on what the business problem is, the business process, and understanding it. I'm very unique because not only have I understand the data and the technology, I actually delivered clinical care as well. So I got the translations in the clinical speak into data, into business value. So I can take information, translate it into value very quickly, and create a solution. But it comes back to that, you must have a designer, and a designer must be an innovator, and an innovator must stay within the curve and the objectives of the business problems. That enables that blueprint to be taken and run with and hit the ground very quickly in an actionable manner. For me, information in health is about insights. Everybody's already doing the medical record, the electronic record, the data exchange. It's a little immature in health in the proper interoperability, but it's there and it's coming. It's actually the use of and the visualization of population analysis. Used to be population health, as in we knew what we were doing after the fact. Now we need to know what we're doing before the fact so we can target the outreach and to put the right people in the right place at the right time for the right care is a bigger insight, and that's what cognitive and the blueprint enables.
So Caitlin, it feels like these 2 worlds are really coming together. I mean, this, you know, in the early days it was just really regulated businesses.
Correct.
Now with GDPR, everybody's a regulated business.
Right.
And given that EMR and meaningful use and things like that are kind of rote now, regulated industries are really driving for that value holy grail. So I wonder if you could share your perspectives on sort of those 2 worlds coming together.
Yeah, I do see them coming together, as well as the leadership in those, across the C-suite. It's interesting that, we host these 2 in-person summits, one in the spring, San Francisco, one here in Boston in the fall, and we get about 120 or so CDOs that join us, and we pull for top, what are top topics, and we always get ones around data monetization, talent. The one that again came up this year was changing nature of to your point on building those deep analytics partnerships within the organization, changing relationships between CDO and C-suite peers. We do a virtual call with about 25 CDOs, and we had John as our guest speaker recently, and it was our best attended call. And it was solely focused on how CDOs and CIOs can partner together to drive business critical cross-enterprise initiatives like GDPR in ways that they haven't in the past. It was incredible. It was a reinforcement to me that building those relationships, that analytics partnership piece, is still top of mind to our CDO community.
And I think that was, the call itself was excellent because it highlighted the chief data officer now is the innovator, and the chief information officer used to be the guy who kept the lights on. Well, that's no longer the fact. The chief information officer is the innovator of the infrastructure, the design, the monetization, the value, the business. And the chief data officer now has become the chief designer of information to make it fit for purpose, for presentation, for analytics, for the cognitive use of the business. Those roles now, you bring them together, is extremely powerful. And as the maturity comes of these chief data officer roles, with the modern approach to chief information, then you have a powerful, powerful dynamic.
Well, and you talk about the chief, innovator. It reminds me of 1999, when everybody said, if you want to be a CEO, you got to go through the CIO's office, and then Y2K and the whole thing blew up. What's different now, though, is the data. Yeah. I mean, certainly was a lot of data back then, but not nearly like it is today, and the technology underneath it, the whole cloud piece. But I wonder if you could talk about the innovation piece of that a little bit more, sure. and its relationship to the data.
So, I mean, we've always been, let's all get a data warehouse. Let's have a data lake. Get the data scientist to fix the data lake. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, well, what did it do? Does it do anything? Show me. And now, that physical, massive environment of big servers in big cages, in big rooms, with big over expenses is no longer necessary. I've just put 91 servers for an entire state's data and population in a cloud environment, multiple security levels with multiple methods of new innovational cloud management, and I've been able to stand up 91 servers in 6.5 minutes. I couldn't even procure that in a catalog before.
That'd be months and months.
Yeah, to put physical architecture together like that. But now I can do it in 6.5 minutes. I can create DR pretty rapidly. I can do flip over, active, and I can really make the use of it. Not only can I use the infrastructure, I can enable people to get information at the point where it's needed now, far easier than I ever did before.
So talking about how the technology has moved and evolved and changed so rapidly for the better, but yet there is still a massive talent shortage of the people who, as you said, can speak the language and can take the data and immediately translate it into business value. What are you doing now about this talent shortage? I mean, what's your take on it, and then what are we doing to fix it?
Yeah.
I would say, in one of the morning keynotes, Jim Kavanaugh, our SVP for Transformation Operations, got that question around how do you educate internally what it means to be a cognitive enterprise when there's so many questions about what does that really mean, and then how do you assess skills against those new capabilities. And he spoke about some of the internal hackathons that we did, and then ran sort of an internal Shark Tank to see, have those top projects rise, align resources against it, and build those skills. And we've invested quite a lot internally, as I know many of our clients have, around what we call a cognitive academy, to ensure that we've, one, figured out and defined what it means in this new, what type of new skills we need, and then make sure that we're able to retrain and then keep and retain, some of our new talent. So I think we're trying that multi-pronged approach to retrain and retain as well.
So you guys use the term cognitive business. We use the term digital business because we can't use IBM's term. So, but to us they're the same thing.
Why
because
not?
It's all about, we're independent.
Dave said it here.
Right? So, but to us it's all about how you leverage data, and how you use data to maintain and to get and keep and maintain customers. So since we're playing CX bingo,
right.
Chief Digital Officer, Bob Lord, right? Okay, and Bob Lord and Inderpaul Bhandaria are two totally different people, and their roles are quite different, but it's all about if it's all about the data and you buy that premise, what does the Chief Digital Officer do? They're largely driving revenue. That's understandable, but it's part of your job too, or former job as a CDO, and now current job as the Innovation Officer. Where do those roles fit?
I think there's a clear demarcation line, and especially when you get into EIM solutions, as in Enterprise Information Management, and you start breaking those down. And you break them down into master data management, and you start putting the domains together, the multi-master domains, and one of them is media. And media needs someone to own it, be the custodian, manage it, and present it to the business for consumption. The others are pure data driven. Master patient, master member, master customer, master product. They all need data driven analytics to present information to the business. You can't just show them a SQL schema and say, there you go, have a nice day. It doesn't work. So there is different demarcations of specialist skills in the presentation, and it's got to be that hybrid between the business and IT, the business and the data, the business and the consumer. And that is, I think, the maturity of where this X suite is going these days. Yeah.
One thing we've seen internally to that point, I agree there's a clear demarcation there, is when we do partner with the digital office, it can be to aid, say, digital sellers. So we have a joint project going where we're responsible for the data piece of it, and then we're enabling our digital sellers, we're calling it a cognitive sales advisor, to pull disparate pieces of customer data that are currently housed in silos across the organization, pull that into a digital, user-friendly app that can really enable those sellers. So I think there's some nice opportunities, just as there are CDO and CIO to partner, for a data officer and a digital officer as well.
One of our earlier guests was talking about some of the things that he's hearing in the breakout sessions, and he said, we could have been talking about the same stuff 10 years ago, just these intractable organizations that aren't quite there yet. What do you think we will be talking about at the next CDO summit, and do you think that there will come a point where we're not talking about, is data important, or does data have a role in the organization? I mean, when do you think that will happen?
Every time I say we're done with governance, right? We're done, and then governance.
Comes
top
right
topic.
back.
If you get the answer to that, can I have the lottery number?
Sure. Exactly.
I think in the next 10 years, we're not going to ask anymore about what did we do. We're going to be told what we did, as in we're going to be looking forward. Things are going to be coming out and saying this is the projected for the next minute, second, hour, month, year. And that's the big change. We're all looking back. What did we do? How did we do? What was the goals we tried to achieve? I don't think that's going to be what we ask next month, next year, next week. It's going to be, you're going to tell me what I did and you're going to tell me what I'm doing. And that's going to change. And that's going to also hit the healthcare market, the way that health is prescriptive, they're not prescribed anymore, the way that we diagnose things against a prognosis. I think the way that we manage that information is going to change dramatically.
I would say too, I've been working quite a bit with a client in Vegas, a casino, and their current issue or problem is they have all this data on what their guests do from the moment they check in. They get their hotel key, they know where they spend, where they go to dinner, what type of trip they're on, is it business, is it pleasure, are the kids in town, and different behavior, spending patterns accordingly. Yeah. And the main concern they relate to us is, I can't do anything about it until my guest has exited the property. And then I'm sending them outreach emails, trying to get them back, or trying to offer a coupon, post, and they're gone. Yeah. And what if I could do some real-time analysis and deliver, something of value to my guest while they're on site? And we're starting to see some of that with Disney and some other companies. Yeah. But I think we'll see the ability to take all this data that we already have and deliver it where we can influence behavior and spending patterns in real time. That's what I'm excited about.
And machines will start actually making decisions, certain decisions for the brand. Yeah. At the point where they can affect an outcome.
Right. Which I think would be really
it's starting, no question. I mean, you certainly see it in fraud detection, today, and like you mentioned, Disney.
The magic bands and the ability to track, where you are and that type of thing. Yeah.
We've started it in cybersecurity. I mean, the cybersecurity and aspect of user logs, server logs, network are looking for behavioral patterns, and those behavioral patterns are telling us where the risks and the vulnerabilities are coming from.
Things that humans would not see that.
They wouldn't see the patterns. Yeah, absolutely right. They just wouldn't see the patterns of the risk.
Excellent. Well, John, Caitlin, thanks so much for coming on theCUBE. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
I'm Rebecca Knight for Dave Vellante. We'll have more just after this.